The night is thick with mystery as a family embarks on what seems like the perfect vacation. As they arrive at their destination, the parents scramble out of the car, momentarily overlooking their child in their excitement. Enter the Daltons. Ben, Louise, and their young daughter Agnes, who've journeyed to Italy seeking an escape from their mundane everyday life. While Agnes's parents soak up the sun, an intriguing encounter unfolds. A stranger approaches Ben, casually requesting to borrow his sunbed and repositioning it near his own family. This group immediately stands out, a peculiar ensemble consisting of Paddy, his wife Chiara, and their energetic son Ant, whose eccentric behavior catches everyone's eye. Ben and Louise decide to enjoy a night out, leaving Agnes with a babysitter. Upon returning, they cross paths with Paddy and Chiara once more. Though Ben senses something slightly off about the couple, nothing immediately alarming transpires. A peaceful dinner with fellow retreat guests follows, creating a sense of calm before the unexpected. The atmosphere shifts when Agnes loses her beloved stuffed toy, Poppy. Suddenly, Paddy and Chiara reappear, holding the cherished plush and introducing their vibrant son, Ant. Paddy makes an enticing offer, a motorcycle ride for Agnes. Initially hesitant, her parents eventually agree, watching as Paddy takes their daughter on a short, seemingly innocent journey. Extending their newfound connection, Paddy invites the Daltons to an intimate dinner. The conversation flows, touching on careers and shared experiences. Paddy, ever smiling, subtly comments on Ben and Louise's more reserved nature. Agnes interrupts, eager to play with Ant, and her parents, wanting to be accommodating, give their consent. The evening crescendos as Paddy and Chiara, radiating a carefree and vivacious energy, propose a celebration of their new friendship, raising glasses that hint at something more brewing beneath the surface. Ben's recent job loss has strained their marriage, with arguments becoming a frequent occurrence. A glimmer of hope arrives in the form of a letter from Paddy. Paddy's invitation to visit their remote farm becomes a potential lifeline for the struggling couple. Ben, desperate to break free from their mounting tensions, sees the weekend getaway as a perfect escape. Louise remains more skeptical, cautioning that they barely know Paddy and his family. Yet their current circumstances, fraught with stress and uncertainty, ultimately tip the scales. They decide a change of scenery might be exactly what they need. The journey itself becomes a test of endurance. Hours of driving transform into a grueling road trip, tension mounting with each mile. When they finally arrive at Paddy and Chiara's isolated farm, the hosts greet them with characteristic warmth and excitement. Drinks flow, and the atmosphere feels celebratory, though Ant's reaction tells a different story. His lack of enthusiasm stands in stark contrast to his parents' effusive welcome. In the kitchen, Paddy's theatricality reaches new heights. He proudly presents blood oranges from Italy, dramatically announcing he sacrificed the farm's finest goose in their honor. Following a peculiar family tradition, the first bite must be taken by a woman, and they insist Louise have this privilege. The gesture becomes uncomfortable when Paddy seemingly disregards Louise's previously mentioned vegetarianism. The evening progresses with an undercurrent of unease. Overwhelmed, Ben steps outside seeking respite. In a tense moment, Ant attempts to communicate something, his struggle to speak palpable and frustrating. Paddy's intervention is swift and stern, sending Ant to bed and abruptly ending the mysterious interaction. As night settles, Ben and Louise find themselves in a candid conversation with Paddy and Chiara. They reflect on their getaway, amusing themselves with the notion that this feels like an unexpected digital detox. The complete absence of internet connectivity adds an almost intentional sense of isolation to their experience. Louise can't help but express her lingering discomfort about the dinner, particularly the fact that their host sacrificed his prized goose specifically in their honor. Preparing for bed, they notice a dried blood stain in their room. A momentary pause of curiosity quickly dissolves into casual dismissal, assuming the room hasn't been used recently. Their conversation meanders, highlighting how remarkably different Paddy's family seems from their own seemingly ordinary existence. When Agnes arrives, unable to sleep, they ingeniously use a breathing technique app to help her settle down. Eventually, everyone drifts into a peaceful slumber. The next day brings a hiking adventure. As they trek through the picturesque landscape, they pause to light a campfire and enjoy a moment of serenity, even spotting a fox leisurely drinking coffee. Agnes's frustration becomes evident when she complains that Ant refuses to play with her. Paddy's response is immediate and unsettling. He forcefully commands his son to engage with Agnes, a scene that visibly disturbs Louise. Louise's neck pain becomes a point of concern, and in a twist of convenience, Paddy, conveniently a doctor, suggests an unconventional remedy, cold water therapy. At the river, a strange scar on Chiara's abdomen catches their attention. Her explanation about falling while picking apples seems rehearsed. Despite Aunt's inability to swim, the group decides to jump into the water. Kiara's reassurance that Patty always takes excellent care of their son provides a veneer of comfort. Louise, after some encouragement, joins the impromptu water adventure. Their return journey nearly ends in disaster due to a technical malfunction, intensifying the already strained dynamic between Ben and Louise. They contemplate using her neck pain as an excuse to depart immediately. However, Kiara's timely invitation to a special dinner at a local hunter's restaurant named Mike changes their plans. Patty declares it an adults-only evening, mentioning they've hired a babysitter, a war refugee working illegally but supposedly trustworthy. Given their own experiences with babysitters for Agnes, Ben and Louise find themselves agreeing, seemingly unaware of the potential risks lurking beneath the surface. Arriving at the restaurant, Patty reveals an unexpected detail. They'll be the sole patrons for the evening. Mike, the chef who personally hunts his own ingredients, greets them with a distinctive intensity. During dinner, Louise gently reminds everyone of her vegetarian preference, prompting apologetic acknowledgments for the previous night's goose dish. Fortunately, her openness to seafood allows for a suitable alternative meal. Back at the house, a playful game of hide-and-seek unfolds between the children and their babysitter. In a curious moment, Ant reveals a collection of watches belonging to Patty. As they're on the verge of being discovered, he signals Agnes to maintain silence, and their game continues. At the restaurant, Patty and Kiara begin sharing surprisingly intimate details about their relationship. They candidly discuss their 17-year journey together, emphasizing their continued passionate connection through nightly intimate encounters. This revelation starkly contrasts with Ben and Louise's own relationship, with Louise reluctantly admitting they're fortunate to experience intimacy even once a month. Kiara's open flirtation with Patty takes center stage, and together they playfully manipulate the evening's dynamics. In an unexpected twist, they abruptly decide to leave, casually expecting Ben and Louise to cover the restaurant bill. Simultaneously, a darker scene unfolds at the house. Ant shows Agnes something deeply disturbing. The marks left by his father Patty's physical punishments quickly dissolved as the mothers return home, prompting the children to feign sleep. Later that night, Ben and Louise find themselves in a raw, emotional confrontation. Ben reveals he discovered compromising messages on Louise's phone from another man. Louise's response is a vulnerable admission of her unwavering support during his job loss, questioning whether their relationship is sustained by genuine love or mutual dependency. Their conversation becomes a turning point. With brutal honesty, they acknowledge the complexities of their relationship. Ultimately, they reconcile, making a heartfelt commitment to actively work on rebuilding their connection and understanding each other more deeply. In a moment of panic, Louise discovers Agnes is missing from her bed. Her frantic search leads her to an unsettling discovery. Agnes is sleeping peacefully in Patty and Kiara's room. Outraged and deeply uncomfortable, Louise hastily packs their belongings, insisting they must leave immediately. As they drive away, Ant watches with a profound sadness, his eyes tracking Agnes's departure. The journey takes an emotional turn when Agnes suddenly realizes her beloved stuffed toy, Hoppy, is missing. Her distress escalates into a full-blown tantrum, her breathing becoming labored and erratic. Ben desperately searches through their belongings, the realization dawning that they've left Hoppy behind at Patty's house. With no alternative, they're forced to turn back, knowing their daughter's attachment to the toy. Returning to Patty's home, Louise explains their abrupt departure. Finding Agnes sleeping in their host's bed had deeply unsettled her. Sensing the tension, Kiara reveals a heart-wrenching personal story. They once had a daughter named Mary, who tragically passed away at just 12 weeks old. When she heard Agnes crying inconsolably, her maternal instinct compelled her to comfort the child by bringing her into their bed. Her sincere apology softens the moment, seemingly resolving the uncomfortable situation. The atmosphere shifts and the Dalton family decides to extend their stay. Agnes, particularly insistent, feels a compelling need to help Ant, her newfound friend. While the mothers chat, the children continue painting. Ant attempts to communicate something crucial to Agnes, writing down a message. However, Agnes struggles to decipher his cryptic writing, and when she mentions it to her mother, she's dismissed as misinterpreting mere scribbles. In a moment of fear, Ant swallows the message, preventing Agnes from showing anyone. Meanwhile, Patty and Ben take a walk. With surprising empathy, Patty acknowledges overhearing their earlier argument, offering understanding about the challenges of potential infidelity. Despite Ben's insistence that it was merely some text messages, Patty encourages him to release his emotional burden. In a therapeutic gesture, he leads Ben to a secluded spot, suggesting they scream to expel their pent-up feelings. Together, they unleash their emotions, shouting until exhausted. A seemingly ordinary moment takes an unexpected turn when Louise accidentally cuts her hand while preparing food. Ben, feeling reassured by the presence of a doctor, remains unconcerned. Suddenly, Patty makes a startling admission. He's not actually a doctor. Patty attempts to diffuse the tension with a dark joke, suggesting they survive by selling drugs, then quickly laughs it off as another of his peculiar pranks, ultimately reaffirming his medical credentials. During lunch, Kiara takes it upon herself to teach Agnes table manners. Louise finds herself increasingly uncomfortable, feeling her maternal role is being undermined. The tension builds as she confronts Kiara, asserting her right as Agnes's mother. Patty intervenes, offering context about Kiara's orphanage background, which might explain her compulsive need to instruct and correct. Guilt-ridden, Louise ultimately apologizes, dissolving the confrontation. The children eagerly present a dance they've been practicing. Ant struggles desperately to maintain rhythm and coordination with Agnes. Patty's frustration becomes palpable. He repeatedly demands they restart, unable to bear watching his son's difficulties. Agnes, deeply unsettled, withdraws from the performance, creating a thick atmosphere of discomfort. As Patty succumbs to sleep, Louise seizes the opportunity, suggesting they should leave. Ben, still somewhat intoxicated, hesitates, preferring to stay and ensure nothing goes wrong. Kiara's cryptic warning adds another layer of unease. They shouldn't leave before Patty awakens, hinting at potential danger. A sinister plan unfolds as Aunt, seemingly calculated, steals his father's keys and deliberately throws his ball toward the chickens. He guides Agnes to the basement, revealing a horrifying discovery. Multiple suitcases and old photographs suggest a dark history of disappeared guests. In a shocking revelation, Aunt confides that Patty is not his biological father. His real dad was murdered, his tongue brutally removed. The implication becomes clear. Patty and Kiara are responsible for multiple family disappearances. Thinking quickly, Aunt instructs Agnes to document their findings using her phone. They manage to exit the basement undetected, carrying with them a devastating secret that threatens to unravel everything. Returning to the main area, Ant encounters Patty, who's now displaying an unexpectedly affectionate demeanor. Requesting a hug, Patty seems intent on maintaining an appearance of normalcy. Ant, quick-thinking and cautious, slips the stolen keys back into Patty's pocket without detection. The facade of a typical family gathering continues undisturbed. Agnes finds her moment of escape when her first period begins. She discreetly asks Louise to use the bathroom, seizing the opportunity to show her mother the basement photographs. Louise, alarmed but composed, instructs Agnes to remain calm and act naturally to avoid raising suspicion. She cautiously sets out to find Ben, unaware that their hosts are already sensing something amiss. Kiara's perceptive eye catches the tension in Louise's neck, hinting at their growing awareness. When Louise and Ben reunite, they strategize their escape. Their only hope lies in appearing completely unsuspicious. They must suppress any hint of fear or nervousness that might betray their knowledge. Agnes, however, struggles to maintain the charade. Her fear becomes increasingly difficult to conceal. They craft a carefully constructed excuse, Agnes's first period and her urgent need to leave, providing a seemingly innocent reason for their sudden departure. Saying goodbye to Patty and Kiara becomes an exercise in controlled performance. Each goodbye, each smile is calculated to reveal nothing of their underlying terror. But fate seems determined to test their resolve. Upon reaching the car, they discover a flat tire, a potentially catastrophic setback. Ben's nervousness surfaces, suggesting they call roadside assistance. Patty, ever confident, intervenes, offering to change the tire himself with unsettling efficiency. Just as they prepare to leave, Agnes remembers Hoppy, her cherished stuffed toy. Patty, always helpful, holds a ladder for Ben to retrieve it from the roof. The moment of retrieval reveals a horrifying detail. Hoppy is completely torn apart. The symbolism is not lost. Exhausted and emotionally decimated by the day's events, Agnes no longer cares about anything except leaving this nightmarish place. As they bid farewell, Patty delivers a chilling parting comment, a statement hovering between sincerity and sarcasm, expressing doubt they'll ever meet again. Louise, stripped of pretense, candidly reveals the fractures in her marriage. She admits to her infidelity, born from deep unhappiness, acknowledging their relationship might be beyond repair. Surprisingly, Patty and Kiara appear almost gratified by her brutal honesty, as if the truth provides a perverse form of resolution. Just as freedom seems within reach, an unexpected and horrifying moment unfolds. Patty callously throws Aunt into the water, knowing he cannot swim. Ben, acting on instinct, rescues the boy. However, this becomes a calculated trap. They discover they cannot leave the fenced area, and the family finds themselves captured once more. Patty reveals the grotesque underpinnings of their entire encounter. This has been a meticulously planned game, targeting families they perceive as morally superior. He demands financial payments and transfers, exposing a deeply disturbing motivation. He candidly admits that they keep Aunt because Kiara desperately wants a child, their previous attempts to start a family having failed repeatedly. As Patty moves to inject something into Agnes, Louise erupts into desperate action. She attacks him with a concealed knife, triggering a chaotic confrontation. In the ensuing frenzy, the family manages a temporary escape, locking Patty and Kiara behind a padlock. Kiara's pleas for help fall on deaf ears, her desperation met with disbelief. Their momentary relief shatters when Mike the hunter begins shooting at them. Cornered and terrified, they retreat back to the house, seeking sanctuary. Attempting to call emergency services, they discover the phone line cut. Ben spirals into panic, but Louise's mixture of desperation and fierce determination snaps him back to reality. The power goes out, plunging them into darkness. They hide the children in a closet, providing strict instructions to remain silent until their return. The confrontation is now unavoidable. Patty, enraged by their betrayal and the car fire they attempted to use as an escape, warns them of his imminent arrival. Mike infiltrates first through the roof, followed by Patty and Kiara, all armed and prepared to conclude their sinister mission. Patty pursues Louise with unbridled fury. In a surprising turn, Louise ambushes him just as he attempts to open her hiding place, managing to injure him and escape. Kiara, now completely unhinged, begins hunting for the children. Aunt's uncontrollable coughing becomes their unexpected betrayal, inadvertently revealing their hiding spot. Guided by the sound, Patty approaches the closet. However, he discovers only the phone with Agnes's breathing app. The children are nowhere to be found. Louise emerges with shocking boldness, throwing acid directly onto Patty. His agonized screams fill the house. Seizing the moment of chaos, she grabs the children and runs. Kiara desperately tries to wash the acid from Patty, but the damage is already catastrophic. In another part of the house, Mike corners Ben, a sharp mirror raised, prepared to strike his eye. At the last possible moment, Louise intervenes, landing a devastating blow with a hammer. The strike is so powerful that Mike collapses, motionless, finished for good. Injured and weakened, Patty orders Kiara to complete their gruesome mission. The children attempt to escape through the roof, but Kiara appears at the window. Louise suddenly appears above, shoving Kiara to the floor. Ben sacrifices himself, jumping down to position the ladder, fracturing his leg in the process. As they descend, a noise startles them. Initially thought to be Patty, it turns out to be just a fox. Their momentary relief is shattered when Patty appears, holding Agnes. Looking at his dead wife, he declares that since they've taken Kiara from him, Agnes will become his new Kiara. Agnes, displaying remarkable cunning, has kept the sedative intended to incapacitate her. She injects Patty, watching him weaken. Though both parents aim guns at him, they ultimately refuse to pull the trigger. As they prepare to leave, Aunt unleashes a final act of vengeance. Grabbing a brick, he strikes Patty repeatedly, transforming his face into an unrecognizable mass, releasing years of pent-up fury. With Patty dead, the family finally escapes the nightmare, leaving behind the horror of the farm.